For years, millions of Americans watched one of the most unusual families. Reality television slowly unravel in front of their eyes. A family that once lived in near total isolation from modern culture, suddenly thrust into the national spotlight. A father determined to maintain control. A mother trying to hold the family together. Children who grew up under strict rules, now confronting a world they were never prepared for. And a television show that turned their private struggles into public fascination. But now, in 2026, something has changed. Something dramatic. Something that has left longtime viewers asking the same question across social media and fan forums. What actually happened to the Plath family? For fans of the reality series Welcome to Plathville, the story has never been simple. What started as a portrait of a conservative American family living off the grid slowly transformed into a deeply emotional saga about independence, rebellion, fractured relationships, and personal identity. And in the years since the show first introduced audiences to parents Kim Plath and Barry Plath and their 9 children, the family has experienced one of the most dramatic transformations ever seen in reality television. Marriages collapsed. Relationships broke down. Children moved away. And the carefully controlled world that once defined the Plath household began to fall apart piece by piece. Now, as we enter 2026, the question isn't just what the Plaths are doing today. The real question is whether the family that audiences first met even still exists at all. Because behind the scenes, the past few years have brought a series of changes that even longtime viewers never expected. Some hopeful, some heartbreaking, and some that may permanently redefine the future of the Plath family. Tonight, we're taking a deep investigative look into where every member of the Plath family stands today, what's changed since the early seasons of their hit reality show, and why 2026 might represent the biggest turning point in their story. Do you understand why the current situation surrounding the Plath family has captured so much attention? We need to go back to the beginning. Back to the moment when the family first appeared on television and immediately became one of the most talked about families in reality TV. The show Welcome to Plathville premiered on the network TLC in 2019. At first glance, the concept seemed familiar. Reality television audiences had already seen shows focused on large conservative families navigating modern American culture. But the Plaths were different. Very different. Parents Kim and Barry Plath raised their children on a rural property in Georgia under extremely strict rules designed to shield them from outside influence. The family avoided television. They avoided mainstream music. The children had limited exposure to the internet. And the household followed a deeply conservative lifestyle rooted in faith, family structure, and discipline. For some viewers, the family represented a refreshing return to traditional values. For others, the environment raised difficult questions about isolation and control. But what truly made the show compelling wasn't the rules themselves. It was what happened when those rules began to break. Because from the very first season, cracks in the Plath family dynamic started to appear. And those cracks centered around one key figure in the story. The family's eldest son, Ethan Plath. When viewers first met Ethan Plath, he was already married to a woman who would soon become one of the most influential figures in the entire story. Olivia Plath. Olivia's presence in the family dynamic created an immediate shift. Unlike the Plath children, Olivia had grown up with a much broader exposure to the outside world. She had different views about independence, personal freedom, and modern life. And those differences quickly created tension within the Plath household. What followed was one of the most dramatic relationship conflicts ever portrayed on reality television. Olivia's relationship with Ethan's parents, particularly Kim, became deeply strained. Over time, the disagreements escalated into open conflict. Viewers watched as Ethan struggled to balance loyalty to his wife with loyalty to his family. And that struggle ultimately changed the trajectory of the entire show. Because once Ethan began stepping away from the rigid structure of his upbringing, other Plath children began asking similar questions about their own lives. Suddenly, the insulated world that Kim and Barry had carefully built for their family was being challenged from within. and the ripple effects would soon reach every member of the household. After Ethan's departure from the family home, attention began shifting toward his younger siblings. Two of the most prominent figures emerging from the early seasons were siblings Micah Plath and Mariah Plath. Both of them represented something that had rarely been seen inside the Plath family before: open rebellion. Micah pursued modeling opportunities and eventually moved away from Georgia to explore a completely different lifestyle. Mariah embraced music, fashion, and personal expression, often clashing with the strict expectations she grew up with. Their decisions created some of the most emotional storylines in the show's history, because as viewers quickly realized, the Plath children weren't simply rebelling against rules. They were navigating an identity crisis. Many of them had spent their entire childhoods shielded from mainstream American culture. Now, as young adults, they were experiencing it all at once. And that transition wasn't always easy. There were painful conversations, broken relationships, moments of regret, and moments of growth. But perhaps the most unexpected change came from the very top of the family structure: the parents themselves. For years, Kim and Barry Plath presented themselves as a united front, a partnership rooted in shared beliefs and a commitment to raising their children within a tightly controlled environment. But by the time the show reached its later seasons, viewers began noticing something different: tension, distance, and signs that the couple's relationship might be shifting. Eventually, those suspicions were confirmed when Kim and Barry publicly announced their separation. The news shocked longtime viewers, not just because of the breakup itself, but because the Plaths had spent years presenting their marriage as the foundation of the entire family structure. Now that foundation was cracking, and the ripple effects would soon spread across the entire family. As 2026 unfolds, the Plath family looks very different from the one viewers first met on television. Some members have built independent lives far away from the family home. Others remain connected to their roots in Georgia. Relationships that were once broken have slowly begun healing, but new tensions have also emerged. The reality is that the Plath family story has evolved into something far more complex than a simple reality television narrative. It has become a real-time exploration of how families adapt to change, how children redefine themselves after strict upbringings, and how public attention can reshape private relationships. And that brings us to the biggest question fans are asking right now: what exactly is happening with the Plaths in 2026? Because according to recent interviews, social media activity, and updates from cast members, the family may be entering a brand new chapter. One that could redefine their story once again. As the years passed after the early seasons of Welcome to Plathville, the story of the Plath family stopped being just another reality television narrative. It became something far more complicated. What viewers once thought was a simple story about a strict household slowly evolved into a much deeper exploration of identity, independence, and the complicated emotional ties that bind families together. By the time the show entered its later seasons, the Plaths were no longer living the same life that audiences had first seen back in 2019. In fact, the family had changed so dramatically that many longtime viewers barely recognized the dynamics that once defined them. And nowhere were those changes more visible than in the ongoing relationship between Ethan Plath and Olivia Plath. Their marriage had once been the catalyst that pushed the entire family story into the national spotlight. But by the mid-2020s, that marriage itself had become one of the most emotionally complex parts of the Plath narrative. Over the years, viewers watched as Ethan and Olivia attempted to navigate a relationship shaped by vastly different backgrounds. Ethan had grown up inside the tightly controlled world of the Plath household, a place where technology, mainstream media, and modern culture were largely kept at a distance. Olivia, on the other hand, had experienced a much broader version of the outside world. Those differences created tension almost immediately after their marriage. And as the seasons progressed, the emotional pressure surrounding their relationship only intensified. In public interviews and social media posts, both Ethan and Olivia openly acknowledged how difficult it had been to build a marriage while simultaneously navigating the complicated expectations of family, religion, and reality television fame. At various points in the show's timeline, the couple even separated temporarily while trying to figure out whether their relationship could survive those pressures. For viewers, it was painful to watch. Because for many fans, Ethan and Olivia represented the emotional heart of the entire series. Their love story had once symbolized hope, a sign that the Plath children could step into the modern world while still maintaining their family ties. But by the mid-2020s, the situation had become far more uncertain. Reports from interviews and public appearances suggested that both Ethan and Olivia were focusing heavily on personal growth and independence. In many ways, their story had shifted from being about marriage to being about individual identity. And that shift reflected something much bigger happening across the entire Plath family. Because one by one, the children who had grown up under strict rules were now building completely different lives. When audiences first met Micah Plath, he was still living under the authority of his parents. But even in those early episodes, viewers noticed something unique about him. Micah had a quiet confidence that suggested he might eventually carve out his own path outside the traditional framework of the Plath household. That prediction quickly proved correct. After leaving home, Micah pursued modeling opportunities, an unexpected career path considering the conservative environment he had grown up in. Photo shoots, travel, and exposure to new cultures became part of his life. And through social media, fans watched as Micah transformed from a sheltered teenager into a young man navigating the complexities of the modern world. His journey resonated with many viewers because it symbolized the dramatic shift happening across the entire Plath family. The same was true for his sister, Mariah Plath. Mariah's transformation became one of the most emotionally powerful arcs in the show's history. From the beginning, she described herself as the black sheep of the family, someone who never quite felt comfortable inside the strict rules that defined her childhood. As she grew older, Mariah began exploring music, fashion, and artistic expression. Her style, personality, and creative ambitions represented a complete departure from the quiet, controlled environment she once lived in. But with that freedom came emotional challenges. Leaving the Plath household meant confronting difficult memories, unresolved conflicts, and the complicated process of redefining who she wanted to be. Fans followed her journey closely, because in many ways, Mariah's story captured the emotional struggle that many young adults experience when they step away from their upbringing in search of independence. Yet perhaps the most unexpected transformation in the entire Plath narrative came from someone viewers initially believed would never change. The family matriarch. For years, Kim Plath represented the central authority figure within the family. She had helped design the lifestyle that defined the Plath household, a life built around strict discipline, limited outside influence, and a commitment to shielding the children from what she viewed as harmful elements of modern culture. But as the series progressed, viewers began witnessing something remarkable. Kim herself started evolving. After separating from her husband Barry Plath, Kim began exploring new opportunities and experiences that would have been almost unimaginable during the early seasons of the show. She pursued business ventures. She embraced a more independent lifestyle. And she started presenting a version of herself that felt very different from the rigid authority figure viewers once knew. For some fans, this transformation was inspiring. It suggested that even someone deeply rooted in tradition could adapt and grow over time. But for others, Kim's evolution raised difficult questions. Critics pointed out that many of the freedoms she was now embracing were the same freedoms her children had once been denied. That contradiction became a frequent topic of debate among viewers. And those debates only intensified as the Plath story continued unfolding both on and off television. By the time 2026 arrived, the Plath family was no longer defined by a single household in rural Georgia. Instead, it had become a network of individuals spread across different locations, lifestyles, and personal journeys. Some relationships had improved over time. Conversations that once seemed impossible were finally happening. Family members who had spent years apart were slowly reconnecting. But healing doesn't happen overnight. And for the Plaths, the process of rebuilding trust and understanding continues to unfold in real time. One of the most powerful aspects of their story is that it reflects a universal truth about families everywhere. No matter how strong the original foundation may be, change is inevitable. Children grow up, values evolve, and relationships must adapt to survive. For the Plath family, that adaptation is played out in front of millions of viewers. Which brings us to the next major chapter in the story. Because in the era of social media and streaming platforms, reality television families don't simply disappear when the cameras stop rolling. Their lives continue to unfold online. And in many cases, those digital updates reveal even more about where the family is heading next. In the years since the premiere of Welcome to Plathville, social media has become one of the most powerful forces shaping the public perception of the Plath family. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube have allowed fans to follow the cast members' lives in real time. Photos, interviews, live streams, and personal reflections now provide a window into the family's ongoing evolution. And those updates have sparked intense debate among viewers. Some fans believe the Plath children have successfully built new lives while still honoring their roots. Others argue that the family's transformation reflects deeper conflicts that remain unresolved. Online discussions frequently revolve around one central question. Was the Plath lifestyle protective or restrictive? It's a debate that continues to divide audiences. And the answer often depends on how viewers interpret the experiences of each family member. Because the reality is that no two Plath children have navigated adulthood in exactly the same way. Some embraced independence quickly. Others took a slower path. And a few have chosen to maintain stronger connections to the traditions they were raised with. This diversity of outcomes makes the Plath story uniquely compelling. It shows that even siblings raised in the same environment can interpret that upbringing in very different ways. As of 2026, the future of the Plath family story remains open. The show that first introduced them to the world, Welcome to Plathville, has already left a lasting impact on reality television. But the real story may still be unfolding. Fans continue to speculate about whether new seasons could explore the next phase of the family's journey. Others believe the Plaths may eventually move beyond television altogether, focusing instead on their individual careers and personal lives. What's clear is that the family's influence has extended far beyond entertainment. Their story has sparked conversations about parenting, independence, faith, and the challenges of adapting to a rapidly changing world. And for millions of viewers, those conversations feel deeply personal. Because at its core, the Plath family narrative isn't just about one household in Georgia. It's about the universal experience of growing up, questioning the past, and deciding what kind of future you want to build. For many Americans who followed the series from the beginning, the Plaths never felt like distant reality television stars. They felt like people navigating real-life struggles. Parents trying to do what they believed was right. Children searching for their identity. Relationships breaking down and slowly rebuilding. And while the cameras captured many dramatic moments, the deeper story has always been about growth, about learning from mistakes, about recognizing that no family, no matter how strong its beliefs, is immune to change. The story of the Plath family continues to evolve, and every new update raises new questions about where their journey will go next. What do you think has been the biggest turning point for the Plath family over the years? Do you believe their story shows the strength of family bonds or the challenges that come with strict upbringing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy deep investigative updates like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss future stories exploring the lives of some of television's most fascinating families. Because sometimes the most compelling stories aren't fictional at all. They're the real ones, still unfolding. As the years progressed after the early success of Welcome to Plathville, something interesting began to happen. The loudest moments of conflict slowly faded. The explosive arguments that once dominated headlines became less frequent. But that didn't mean the Plath story had become simple. In many ways, it became more complicated. Because when the cameras stop capturing dramatic confrontations, what's left is something deeper. The long, slow process of figuring out what life looks like after a family has been transformed. And by the time the mid-2020s arrived, Nearly every member of the Plath family was living a life that would have seemed almost unimaginable back when viewers first met them. The tightly controlled environment that once defined the household had slowly dissolved. The children who once followed strict rules about music, television, and modern culture were now adults navigating